Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. Today I am joined by guest Carl Franklin. Carl, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jonathan. Happy to be here.
So today, folks, we are going to send a love letter to value pricing. But first, Carl, could you tell folks a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I have a podcast called .NET Rocks that I started in 2002. And if you do the math, that was before the word podcast existed.
Wow.
I had a training company, Franklin's Net, and I was teaching people all about .NET. And I held my own classes and had a lot of people on my mailing list because back in the 90s, I had a little webpage called Carl and Gary's Visual Basic Homepage.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a mailing list that had about 25,000, 30,000 people on it.
Oh.
And so what I did when I started recording these, they weren't podcasts. I called it Internet Audio Talk Show for .NET developers in 2002 with my first co-host, Mark Dunn. And we just would record the conversations on the phone using hybrid telephone technology and put them out on the website as episodes. And then I would email my hordes of fans and say, go get them. And then by the time Apple Podcasts came around, actually, the first one was RSS, right?
Yeah.
Dave Weiner and all those guys. And I was there when that happened. I had all the metadata in a database already. So, and ASP was or I guess it was ASP.NET, was the technology of the day. And I just wired up an RSS feed. And I can't remember when it was, but I had at least 100 episodes by then.
Mm.
And then when Apple Podcasts, made podcasting take off, that was the next bump, or it was the third bump, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember now. It's been so long ago, but we just kept, getting more and more popular. And I remember then when, there were other, we had people who wanted to burn them to CDs. And so they were complaining when the podcast got too long. They couldn't fit it all in one disc. It had growing pains, but in general, though, it's still going to this day, and we're almost to the 2000th episode.
Wow. That's crazy.
1979, I think, was the last one we recorded.
That's mental.
And you were a guest.
Yeah.
On one of those shows or two of those shows. That's how we met.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we talked about, we might have had a technical conversation about mobile, but that might have been the reason.
We did.
Yeah. And
the first one was you were talking about your Starbucks app, Buy Me a Coffee or something like that.
Yes.
Which I don't know if you've talked about on your own show, but
probably not.
What a great story.
Yeah, that was wild. That was, I won't rehash it here, but that would have been 2011, I think. And I basically took my Starbucks gift card, which has a barcode on the back of it, and I just posted it on my blog and invited people on Twitter. I was very active on Twitter, and I was like, hey, if anybody wants a coffee, you can just go take it, because there was no mobile apps for checkout or anything. Starbucks had the very first one, and it was just a barcode. So I was like, well, I can probably just check out, pay for a coffee with a photo on my phone, which worked. And then I was like, it'd be funny if I put this on my website. And, a week later, it was on the front page of CNN.
Right. Yeah. So they could put money on the card, but you thought of it as, wow, this is great advertising dollars, right?
I didn't really think of it like that, but
that's the way I thought of it. At first I was like, well, gee, how much are you going to top that off before you say, okay, I'm done giving away coffees? But but I would consider that great advertising dollars. Like, that's a great place to spend money to get fans. Buy them a coffee.
I had more than 1 million hits on my website in 3 days or something. It was it was crazy. I still have an amazing domain reputation because of CNN and all of these other big websites linking to me. So have some lasting effect. Yeah, that was a wild story though.
It's amazing. What a great story. And then of course you talked to us about value pricing.
Right. So, and then you just took to it like a fish to water. It seemed like you ran with it right away.
I remember talking to you about it the first time, and a couple of things stand out from that conversation. Like, you were talking about padding, maybe starting with your hours and then padding the price. But really what it's all about is figuring out the value of your services to your potential customer and pricing it accordingly. And I didn't really get that. You were saying, we're going to pad it like 180% or something like that. And I was like, wow, I mean, you're talking to us about this. Do your customers feel like you're ripping them off? And you've basically said, my customers love this
Yeah.
because they know exactly how much they're going to pay. And I have guaranteed them that I'm going to keep working until they say it's done and until our spec is complete.
Right.
And I was just blown away by that. And also, I've had the pain of being in software projects where at the end, it's an argument, It's an argument because, fix the bugs. Well, I want to be paid to fix the bugs. Well, we're not going to pay you to fix the bugs.
They're your
It's like, look,
bugs.
I need to be paid for my time.
Right.
And then it blows up and
Yeah.
it's not good for anybody.
Right. And for people
That
listening,
happens a lot.
the 85% padding thing that Carl's referring to is something I recommend for people who are just barely ready to start thinking about not even value pricing, but just fixed pricing at all. And
Right.
you find on my website, I think it's called it's on the pricing curves page. There's a little reference to the 85% premium where you can give them an hourly estimate, just like you always do. It's like maybe it's going to be $100, 100 hours at $100 an hour. Or your other option is I'll give you a fixed price of like $18,500, and you can either sort of roll the dice with the hourly if you want, or I'll guarantee this fixed price. So that's a sort of a baby step that I give to people who are.
Yep. But your questions, the 3 questions that's how you figure out what the value is. And you've talked, obviously, I must have talked on this website. I know I subscribed to your class that I got by email, which was great.
Cool.
And,
Nice.
I got the solidified in that. But do you talk about that stuff on this podcast? Does everybody, all the listeners know what those 3 questions are?
Yeah, I think episode 10 of this podcast is called The Why Conversation. So folks don't know what that is, and they can go way back to episode 10 and look that up. But it's basically something I learned from Value-Based Fees by Alan Weiss. He doesn't call it the why conversation, but it's like, why this, why now, and why me? And if you can get answers to those 3 categories of questions, you basically got everything you need to write a killer proposal, almost like Mad Lib style. You can just kind of like, slot in the things that they said into a template. And then, well, what's your experience? I've told the story a million times, but what's your experience of, do you remember the first time you really tried this approach and how that went?
Yeah. First of all, it's always succeeded. Like I've done 5 or 6 projects now with it, and every single one of them worked all the way to the end, and the customers are happy. And every time I have a new customer, I get a testimonial and I add that to the proposal. And so the questions are really great, and they're constructed to give you insight into their current situation, right? And so therefore, like, why that? Do you have to build this? Is there something that you can get off the shelf and modify? And by the time they're talking to you, usually the answer is no. We've looked and we'd have to, it's too complex and too much business logic to customize it to our needs. And we really need to build it ourselves, right? So you write that down, as you say. And then the next one is, why now? Can it wait a year? And I love what you said. You're basically trying to talk them out of hiring you.
Yeah. Sometimes they say that.
Why now? Can it wait a year?
Right.
Yeah. Can it wait a year? And, hopefully you're going to get something like, oh, well, the current application is hemorrhaging money. I mean, that would be like a ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, right.
But
hello. Yeah, and they've usually waited too long by the time they're talking to you. So yeah, it has to be now. But you want to know the reason why.
You want to know the reason why. Right, exactly. And then why me? You could hire a team from Bangalore, for, $30 an hour for a team, and why me? And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully they're going to say, well, we did our research and we found that you're the guy or the woman or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're the person that we want to hire, and your reputation and all that stuff. And you write all that down. I mean, you're just trying to discover what value you can bring to the customer. And then, of course, you do the phases. Phase one is documentation and discovery. And then phase two happens after they agree on one of your prices and proposals. And yeah, it just works great. And it works great for everybody. And also, because as developers, we don't know what we don't know about the project when we start out. So we give an estimate, right? But that
Right.
estimate is probably low because there's a lot of contingencies that you didn't plan for that come up. And so that's why, adding more hours to your estimate is like a default position.
Can you give folks a sense of scale for the kinds of projects you're talking about?
Sure. Most of the projects that I worked on and are still working on are small to medium size amounts of customers, like maybe 20,000 customers, 30,000 tops, maybe 100,000. But, I also have to talk to them about, well, how many concurrent customers do you think will be using the system at one time? Because that really determines the scale of the project, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we learn those things in phase one, Well, actually, I ask those questions right off the bat.
Yeah.
I try to find out if they're having scalability problems now and what the bottlenecks are so that we can take care of those in phase one. The customer I have now, which is a huge customer, and I'm not going to say their name because everybody will know who they are. Phase one, when we met, they basically say, yeah, our database is really slow. I mean, didn't say anything, just
Yep.
we'll check that out. But I think that that's going to have to be something that is addressed in phase one because it determines the estimate for the rest of the project, right? If we can get those bottlenecks taken care of right away, first of all, bonus for them because they're not really paying for that. They're paying for documentation and discovery,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps us learn, learn what we can do and how we can do it. And if it doesn't work, like they have to use the system that they have without whatever modifications to the database or caching or whatever, then,
Mm-hmm.
we know we've got a bigger problem.
Right. So so these projects are, like, how long of a time frame are we talking about? Like, are these like year-long projects? Are these 1-month projects?
It depends. They're not month-long projects. I would say 6 months minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But one customer that I have now, I've been working with for over a year, and they have a handful of applications that are separate applications now, web applications that they wanted to unify and put under one umbrella with the new technology, with the, Blazor
Mm-hmm.
server. And it was web forms before that. So we're taking a piecemeal approach to it. And we did an initial contract, and then they have applications where there's custom code for each of their clients. So we had a different contract for each one of those projects. And then there's another big project that's like a year long that I'm working on now. And after that, there's another project that's going to be a year long, but we're taking them in chunks, which I totally recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And this new customer that I'm talking to today, we, because they're so big and they have had bad luck with consultants in the past, right? Consultants that didn't work well within their programming style. And for whatever reason, they spent a lot of time and money and nothing really came of it. So we want to assure them that we can produce quality. So I'm going to encourage them to not give us like the scope of the entire application because it's big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Give us to start something small that we can knock out of the park in a few months, a couple months, to give confidence to the stakeholders that, we really ought to continue. And we know for a fact that we can do that.
Cool. So are you pricing each of these phases independently as they come up, or are these all of these individual
Well,
pieces under a huge
with the new one or the current one, the new client,
Mhm,
the new client, we don't know yet. I mean, we're just starting phase one.
mhm.
So, yeah, we kind of have an overview of the big picture. But during this talk, I'm going to test the waters to see if they're comfortable hiring us for the whole thing right up front. But I'm going to recommend that we start smaller so that the confidence will grow with us. And I don't know what that looks like yet.
So that's a funny switch when people aren't really expecting, I think, when they're switching from hourly or they're imagining switching from hourly to value based,
Mm,
which is you want smaller projects. When you do hourly, you're like, yeah, I
mm,
want this giant project, and you're not really worried about scope creep because you're going to get paid.
right. Yeah.
Eventually, the client will start to get dissatisfied if it starts to go way out of budget
Right.
or way over budget, and then you end up in an argument. But
Mm,
when you're flipping it and you're giving a fixed price based on value or anything else, whatever it's based on, if it's a fixed price, the risk is on you. So you don't want this
hmm.
monster 7-figure risk. You want just something
Right.
small and then have a win, another win, another win. And if you're constantly declaring victory like that, just like you said,
Yeah.
increases their
Yep.
confidence and your confidence because you don't know, everything on
Sure.
this big squirrely legacy code base. You can't know everything
Right.
right up front.
And they've told us right up front that, their boss, the big boss, likes to have his fingers in the pie, and is kind of I don't know if it's control freak or what, but likes to call the developers at 9 o'clock at night and say, I want this feature by tomorrow, that kind of stuff. So the people that are working with me on it have worked for people like that before. We'll just have to see if that's going to be, if our responsiveness is acceptable to them. So
hmm
who knows?
Yeah.
We could do the first project, and they could say, no, you're not responsive enough because we didn't jump at 9 o'clock at night and say, we're right on it. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. So trying to get, obviously you can't give like total specifics, certainly about the new client, but like past clients,
Hmm.
how do you actually, in the first proposal, what you referred to as sort of a phase one, is that the whole proposal or is that option one on a larger
No,
proposal?
no. Phase one is what I call the paid upfront discovery and documentation.
hmm
I started when it was just me charging $5,000 for that and giving him like a month to work out a spec, and so that we could give him a proposal. And now it's up to 10,000 for big projects, and it's still a month. I still give him a month, but it's basically for the purpose of getting a spec together with them so that we know exactly what they want, and in as much detail as possible. And things that are open-ended, we have to leave open-ended, but they're not part of this scope. So um, when we give them the three options, for spec, and for what we're going to do
hmm
in pricing accordingly, we have to be clear that anything that isn't in this list of things that we're offering
hmm
is we're going to have to come up with another discovery and documentation phase for that scope.
hmm
So, and most people are fine with that, but that's another reason why I wanted to start small, because we really don't know what to expect until we get
hmm
in there and start coding.
The first phase, the discovery and documentation, which sometimes I'll refer to that generally as a roadmap or some kind of
Hmm.
design phase. It depends on what you do. If you're a software developer, it might be design and documentation
Yeah.
or discovery. So that's basically, is it always now it's just a fixed price? It's kind of like a productized service. If you want to work
Hmm.
with us, step one is you do this $10,000 phase one.
Yeah. And I got that from you. I mean, you basically said you're paying for a product, and that product is a spec and our price to you if you want to go with us. But if you want to take that spec, shop it to another team. If you didn't like how it went during phase one, you want to go find, the lowest bidder, have at it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But this
So,
is our price.
right. Okay. So once that's done, do you have
Mhm.
another meeting with like, what's your process once it's done? So people can maybe, if people maybe copy it or something.
Yeah, we give them a document, right, that has, and this is right out of your playbook, right? It has the entire spec, and there will be optional stuff that they didn't ask for in there. Um,
Like recommendations from you.
well, yeah, and things that they didn't think of that we think we could offer to increase the value, and that is, option 3. So option 1 is a minimum viable product, and for less money that doesn't include everything in the spec
Hmm.
that they wanted, but it includes the major things, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Option 2 will be everything in the spec that we all agreed on, and that's a higher price. And then option 3 is, optional bells and whistles. And those things could be anything from, having a custom application penetration test from a well-known security company,
Yeah. It's a good
to
one.
having a CSS designer come in and fix the style if there's anything wrong with it that we didn't see, or accessibility, end-to-end testing,
Hmm.
right, and unit testing. Just get quality assurance testers in there to bang on the product. Those kinds of things that typically aren't in a spec for software. And then we give them the you know the the testimonials and the reasons why. We read them back to, the stuff you wrote down during phase 1. You read it back to them. You need this application to be written. You
Yep.
need it to be written as soon as possible. And you found me and hired me because of my reputation, and I have another excuse. I'm like, I can't afford to have a bad reputation because I'm a public figure.
Yeah.
I talk about programming for a living, as in addition to all this stuff.
Hmm.
So, it's my reputation on the line. I'm not going to take the money and run. You know.
Right.
And then we give them the 3 options, and we send it to them, and they think about it, and they come back in a meeting and say, we're going to go with option 3, of course, because that's what they always do.
So how do you present the proposal? Some people like to give it in person or like live, maybe remotely or in person, and sort of
Mm,
go through it with them in real time. Other people will just email it and follow up. Which do you have a
that's what we
preference?
do. That's what we do. I mean, by then they've seen everything in the spec, right? And what they haven't seen is the 3 money proposals and work proposals, and
Hmm.
the value and the dollar amounts.
Hmm.
They haven't seen that. So by then they've seen the spec. And so I just emailed that to them, and let them decide.
Cool. Okay, that's that's great. So how when it somebody chooses option 3, how common is
Mm.
it for you to have surprises or things go sideways or sort of regrets of like, oh geez, we would have made more if we billed this hourly or something like that?
Never had a regret. No, because we always put enough in there to satisfy our income requirements, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And according to the value to them. And you know what? If it's just a mind shift, like you don't think, oh, I'm doing all this extra work, I got to bill more hours.
Yeah.
You just go with it.
Right.
I have confidence in myself that any twist that could come up, oh, we said we would do it this way, now we're going to do it that way. And I think about it, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's doable. Uh, it's not any more work. It's just kind of a change.
Yep.
But if they come back with, we want to add this feature and that feature and this feature and blah blah blah, and it's a lot more work, then we'll say, well, that's out of the scope, and we're gonna have to write up a new agreement for that. But I've done that, and companies are happy to do it. You know.
Okay. So that's I'm trying to think. The When I was doing projects, I'm trying to think of a situation. I feel like it's been so long. I feel like there was one time when a company they basically changed their priorities
Mm,
internally. Trying to remember, I remember talking about this. I can't remember what happened though. It was the possibility of what could have happened was, new CEO, that type of thing, change priority.
right.
Um, we want you to do this other, do this basically add another project to the project. And I was like, well, we can do one or the other, but I can't do both at the same time because I don't, you have some employees and so forth. That was just me. So I was like, I can't do them both at the same time. So, we can stop the current one, just pause it. I'll give you a whole new proposal for this other one. It's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
I remember doing that, but I don't remember executing on it. So they must have been like, yeah, what? Never mind. Just stay on the one you're on.
Okay.
Have you ever had like a big issue like that where someone
No.
Okay, good.
No, I haven't. But I've had other weirdnesses that I consulted you on that you hadn't done before either. Like I had a partner that I was going to do a project with that I wanted to include him in the value pricing incentive, right? And my business partner was like not used to this value pricing thing and was like, oh, we're going to pay this person hourly. And I'm like, well, first of all, we trust this person, right? And second of all, we want to give that person the same incentive as we have. Like, it doesn't make sense if I'm doing a value pricing and out of that value pricing, I'm paying this guy hourly, It would be okay for something that I didn't think would take a long time, but he was integral to the development and did stuff that, was going to have to be there. So what we did end up with, and I remember calling you and having a conversation on the phone, trying to convince my business partner that that it was a good thing as long as you trust the person, and we
Right.
both did. So we went ahead with it. But what we did is we kept track of our hours, not to be paid hourly, but to get a percentage of the money that the customer paid that month. And that worked out really well, So, I mean, you're still getting paid based on the work that you do, but it's not your hourly rate. It's going to be more than your hourly rate. And that brings me to the second thing, which is I know that you say that, when you do these options, option A, option B, option C, that they should be paid in full at the onset. And, that's not negotiable. However,
I don't say it's not I say it is negotiable.
Oh, okay.
The price is not negotiable, but yeah.
The price is not negotiable, right? So what I found was that most customers prefer to stretch it out over a year, right? So if the project is going to take at least a year, maybe 2 years, but over a year, take that number and divide it by 12, and then they pay monthly for that. And I'm happy to do that too. And that's actually how it's worked out with most of my clients. There was only one where it was all up front and it wasn't enough money for them to worry about.
Yeah. So I, not all the time, I'd say maybe 20% of the time I would negotiate. A client would want to negotiate the upfront payment. And there have been times when I knew where it was like a mid 6-figure project, like a really beefy number where I didn't want the money up front.
No, it's a tax issue, isn't it?
Just a variety of, just psychologically, I didn't want to have 200 grand sit in my account. Like it felt too heavy. So, so it was like, as long as my philosophy on the payment terms is ask for 100% upfront, and that gives you something to negotiate, gives you something to sort of, concede. And there are cases where the number is just so high that it creates a cash flow problem for the client. And so they're just going to be like, look, we just can't get all this money together upfront.
Yeah.
But as long as they're paying you on a schedule, not against sign off. So I'm totally fine with scheduled payments that are like either every 30 days or, it's like, think of it like a payment plan. I'm totally cool with that. The thing that I really don't like is tying to milestones.
Right. One client tried to do that with us, and it should never have been a value price project. Yeah. So that's another cautionary tale, is that you should be able to smell when it's not going to be a good client for value pricing.
Another reason to keep the project small.
Yeah. Keep the project small. Right.
Yeah. so you can start to detect the odor of the types of people that aren't going to be a good fit.
The other thing that I had to kind of figure out is how long is it going to take? Because you don't know. And what I say in the proposal is I give you an estimate of how long it's going to take, but I really don't know. And it might take longer, it might take less time, but that's not the point. I mean, for me in the pricing, we're not going to stop working until you're satisfied, right? And when I said that to my new client, they said, "Sounds too good to be true." And another guy chimed in, "Well, you haven't seen the number yet."
And you're like, "Yep, they get it.
They get it.
You haven't
Right.
seen the number yet."
But they love it. I mean, they love the idea that, they have to go to the higher ups and get permission for this one sum. And that is the cost of the delivered product.
Yeah.
That is like really appealing to these customers.
Who wouldn't want that?
Right. What was the metaphor you used about buying a car?
Yeah, it's like imagine going to the car lot and them saying like, "Oh, I'd like this Outback. How much is it?" And they're like, "Well, you just take it and drive it around for, a few months and then we'll let you know how much it is." It's like,
Right.
no, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say, speaking of you haven't seen the number yet, what would you say has been the impact of switching to a value pricing model versus what you were doing before on your finances?
Less stress for me, more money. I mean, I'm making more than I had before. And of course, at the end of the project, you're delighting your customer. There's no chance unless, you get sucked in to more work than is in the spec. But, you don't do that. I mean, you say up front that, if you're adding work, you make a new agreement. This is the money you're paying for this work. And it's great because you don't have to worry about, the end of the project disappointing them or them disappointing and being disappointed in you. And then your reputation goes down the toilet, But this way, I think the way that these guys found me was just doing research on Reddit. And when I asked why me, and they said, "Well, we researched you, we found you and all the stuff that you've been doing on Blazor and everything, and you're the guy." I was like, wow, that was, I mean, usually they kind of knew who I was and they reached out to me because they saw AppV Next and whatever. But I had one customer who didn't realize until we were halfway through the project that I was Carl Franklin from .NET Rocks. And like his whole attitude changed after that.
That's crazy.
It was really weird. Like they knew, they found me, I guess, Blazor Train or AppV Next or whatever. And we did sign the contract and it was a good project. And then halfway through, he said, "Wait a minute, you're Carl from .NET Rocks." It's crazy.
Yeah, how do clients usually find you? Where do they come from? Is it could be anywhere, or do they normally they know who you are?
Well, one of these guys did it. One of these guys just found the AppV Next website and sent me an email and say, "Hey, we have this project and we think that your skills might be aligned with us." I don't know if they went to Blazor Train or whatever, but then the current one that as I said, they found me through just doing some research, which is great.
Yeah. Do they have I guess it doesn't. Why does it matter? I'm curious for the listener. The listener hasn't been doing a podcast since the 90s, so
Right. Yeah.
So if there's anything that you could sort of suggest to people who are not getting found, not attracting. I mean, this is a huge household name client. Like how?
Right. Have a blog.
Yeah.
Have a blog. Use the social medias, and also I would contribute to GitHub repos. Open source projects. I found a developer by going to Microsoft's forums, where people were asking in the knowledge base and stuff and asking questions. And I found there was one guy who was answering all the questions, and they were complicated Azure questions. And the response was, "That worked. Thank you very much." And I saw this guy had done that over and over and over again. And I was like, I want to hire you. So
Yeah.
first of all, you have to not be a bullshitter. I mean, you can't bullshit your way into something like this. You actually have to do the work and have to be good enough
Yeah.
to do the work. But now you just need to show the world that you can. So go answer questions. I don't know. Stack Overflow is still relevant. I think the
Much
viewership went
smaller, I
down or
think.
something. I'm not sure, but maybe that's a good place too.
I recently read the Stack Overflow guys complaining that their traffic's gone way down since Google started
ChatGPT
and the Google Instant Answers or whatever it's called. But still, I do think another example. I just interviewed someone. The podcast isn't out yet. Tim Dietrich, and he basically made a free tool for the platform that it didn't have a feature, so he built basically kind of like a plugin for the platform that he specialized in.
Yeah,
and it was like it became really popular, and then ended up that the platform's NetSuite ended up that the platform basically built the feature into the thing. So the product didn't, the open source thing didn't really need to exist anymore, but he got a lot of attention and work from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's like instead of writing a book, build a free tool or something that becomes popular.
I know a guy who did that for Blazor, and after about a year and a half, he was snatched up by a company and paid buku dollars because, people were using, and I still use his tools from this day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. For people that don't want to be on social media all the time or
right.
Maybe start a podcast or anything like that, contributing to the platform or creating plugins, free stuff, that just works great. And that can really attract business.
Right. So my advice in 3 words is just be awesome.
I don't want to gloss over your other point, which is you can't bullshit your way into this. You have to actually be good.
Right. Yes.
So assuming you're good, then it's okay, then you can do these. There's some other things you can do, and then you can really increase your income and your quality of life, just your stress levels, keep your stress levels down by giving these value-based approaches.
And by the way, by good, we don't mean can use ChatGPT or agents to answer all your questions and educate you. That's not being good. You have to have experience.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this on .NET Rocks a lot, Jonathan, which is that it's more difficult for junior programmers right now, first of all, to get a job because the jobs are dwindling. But second of all, to just use ChatGPT to solve problems that they don't know how to solve about things they don't know about. And it's easier for guys like us who've been around the block, for many years, because we know what questions to ask and we know to recognize the answer as inappropriate or not right. So, the agents might give you a technical answer to a code solution that works, but it's dumb. And you wouldn't know that unless you had the experience to tell, nah, that's not necessary. There's a simpler way to do that.
Yeah.
So you got to know what questions to ask. And also along those lines, I tell this story, like if your boss comes to you and says, we need a tool that does this, or a class that does X, and you go to ChatGPT or whatever it is, and you say, write me a class that does X. And it does. And, you test it and it kind of works and you go back and forth and all this stuff. But then you find out that, the framework that I'm using already has a class that does that. Right?
Right.
So that's basically a dumb question to ask it to write you a class that does that. The question should have been, is there anything in the tool set that I'm using that does this? That should have been your first question.
Yep.
But that's the kind of thing that a seasoned developer would know and would be able to spot that a junior developer or a newbie would not. So don't don't think you can be a hotshot developer by leaning on ChatGPT or the agents.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it's not just code. It's
Yeah.
in other domains, I find that
Right.
I get the most utility out of ChatGPT when I'm asking it to do some grunt work that I'm capable of doing. I just don't want to do it.
Right. Right.
Right. Because then I can verify the results. I
Yep.
can just take a look at it and be like, oh, that was a dud. Let me try it again or
Mhm.
ask a different way. But if I didn't know if I didn't know what correct looked like, if I didn't know what the air quotes right
Yeah.
answer was, I have no way to verify it. And
Right.
whenever I've asked it to do things where I don't know what the right answer is, I'm kind of using
Mhm.
it like Google, or be like, oh, how do I don't know. What are the history of the ITF forms in Taekwondo? It could tell me
Mm.
anything. I don't
Right.
know. So
Yep.
it's like, now to verify it, I have to do the research that I would have done in the first place.
Right.
So it's like, for certain things,
Yeah.
it's more work than just doing it.
Or a Taekwondo expert, but they charge $500 an hour. But you say, hey, if I pay you $100, can you verify that this information is correct? And you might get okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people I've interviewed people who are like, well, you can take the results and put it into Claude and say, does this make sense? Or does this, and I'm like,
You could,
you could.
but then
And
you might get another answer,
yeah, right. So I find it's anything that, I really don't use it for anything, or use it in a very different way. And it's a lot less productive when it's something where
Mm.
I am outside of my normal domain of
Right.
expertise. It's really, but when you're inside your domain of expertise, it's amazing.
Mm.
It's
Right.
like, yeah, that's
Yes.
great. And I didn't have to type it.
Yep. Exactly.
So what would you tell people about the switch? The actual, if you can think back to when you were switching,
Mm.
what, sort of maybe resistance you had internally, to your own personal resistance from other
Mm-hmm.
people involved, or like things that you would do differently the next, if you were
Mm.
somehow had a time machine and could do it again. Were there like things that you didn't feel like you executed very well the first
Well, the
time?
first project went exceedingly well, even though it was kind of small. The second project that I did, the customer actually ended up taking my proposal and going somewhere else.
Hmm.
That was fine.
Yeah.
I was trying to think ahead in that case because they had a lot of users that they had to add to their user database, their identity database. And so, part of my proposal was to write a little console application that could do that for them pretty easily. But I think I got a little too focused on that, and they were just like, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what the problem was, but I gave them a good proposal, and it was a good phase one, and it was pretty detailed. They just decided to shop it around, and they never came back to me. But that was only the second one.
Mm-hmm.
The third one was the one that shouldn't have been value priced. The fourth
Mm-hmm.
one was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The guy found me from .NET Rocks. He was a huge listener, and I still keep in touch with them and do work for them to this day. The fourth one was great. And the fifth one, I currently still have as a customer and working on a 2-year project with them. And then there'll be another 1 or 2-year project with them. And then the current one, we're getting into phase one, in about 40 minutes from now.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
we'll see what happens. But this current one, I'm working with 2 other guys that, from AppVNext that work with me to round out the expertise. So,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to do that same percentage thing where, we're going to, if we get to phase 2, we'll divide up, the monthly money according to how many hours we worked. And that seemed to
Interesting
work
model.
before.
Yeah.
And it's, it worked. It's a good model. Everybody likes it.
Cool. Yeah. I've talked to other people who have either employees or long-term contractors and that kind of thing. And they, would just get fixed prices from the contractors for like the module or the feature. And so like
Right.
my guy would, as a tech guy, could really describe exactly what he wanted in terms that another tech person would really understand. And it's like, Matt, I could give you $5,000 for this. Is that enough to build out this
Yeah.
module? And, he knows they do high quality stuff, and, there's a lot of trust. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. Here it is up front. Let me know when you're done.
There are people I've worked with that, well, I would definitely do that with, but these two are like long-term people that I want to have other projects with in the future, and want them to be invested in the process to the same degree that I am. So
Sure.
yeah, because they're in for the long haul. It's not like one module that each of them is going to do.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be trickier with a really long one.
But for example, one of the optional things that we're probably going to offer is an application penetration test from a very reputable security company, and they have a dollar amount that they want for that. And so it's very easy for me to add that to option 3.
Yep.
Because I know how much it's going to cost.
Right. Yeah, it's great. Cool. If anybody in the audience, if there are any .NET people in the audience who somehow haven't heard of you or .NET Rocks, where could they go to find out more about what you're doing?
Sure. Well, .NETRocks.com is the podcast, and it's still going strong. Richard Campbell and I have been doing that since episode 100. I had a co-host for episodes 1 through 50, and then 50 through 100, and so that's good. And we talk about all things, not just .NET, but anything that a .NET developer would be interested in. That's what we talk about. And then I have some YouTube video content. Blazor Train is like a complete course in using ASP.NET Core, Blazor server, and WebAssembly, all the little things there.
Wow.
Blazor Puzzle is another one I started after Blazor Train was kind of done. And I'm maintaining Blazor Train, obviously, with new versions of .NET. But Blazor Puzzle is something that Jeff Fritz from Microsoft and I do. And that is, we present an issue and we say, all right, pause the video if you want to try to figure it out. And then we give the solution.
That's funny.
And it's fun. We have repos for every episode. And then we started a new one called Code It with AI, and Jeff is really the expert on this because he works for Microsoft, and all the Microsoft, tech evangelists or whatever you want to call them, they have a mission to do more AI stuff. So he really dove into the GitHub Copilot agent and working with it in Visual Studio and in Visual Studio Code. And so now we're doing topical talks on that.
Cool.
So
I'll have to check that out. I haven't
think
seen
that's
that.
it. Oh no, Security This Week. This is a
really?
podcast that I do with 2 guys from Pulsar Security. And these are the guys that would do the pen test. They basically are a professional security company that other companies hire to have them hack into their businesses and try to find the weaknesses and shore them up. And we basically talk about security concepts through the lens of the week's news, which is usually security breaches or those kinds of things. And for each one, we talk about, does this affect you or not? We take the CVSS severity score and we sort of make that, okay, that's fine, but what's the real contagion score? Like, how likely am I to get this? And then we go down the path of, well, you already have to have an admin account on the system. Oh, okay, so it's not really a 9. So the first they have to get into your system, and then they can to use this hack. And then, go patch is another thing that we say about, if you're using this product, go patch. And then this one is just an interesting story, so be careful. Don't click on links and emails and text messages, those kinds of things we do a lot. So those are them.
Jeez, you got a lot going on. Keeping yourself busy.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. That's basically the problem.
Cool. Well, this has been great, Carl. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
All right, folks, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark, and I hope you join me again next time on Ditching Hourly. Bye.